Hey there, Justin again, Full Live Athlete Pastor Channel, and it is day 66 of the online Bible Reading Club. We are going to be looking at Deuteronomy 1 through 3 and Mark 10, 30 through 32 through 52 today. All right, so let's get into it. We're in book 5. Book 5 of the First Testament, the Old Testament. And as you look at Deuteronomy, what exactly are we dealing with here? What does Deuteronomy mean? Deuteronomy means second law. So in the Hebrew original naming of the book, it was like, and he began to speak on the plains here. So it's basically, the idea here is that Moses is delivering a bunch of sermons to a people who have now, as the first chapter makes clear, arrived at the base where they're not in the promised land yet. They're still beyond the Jordan. The Jordan River is the east boundary of the promised land. And you'll see, we'll talk about the promised land as we go through it. But here they are, they're on the edge. And what happened, which is actually recounted, it's a lot of the history of the previous 4 books, setting the context for the rest of the Bible here about what's happened already as that people are about to go in the promised land. Well, here's the key thing, is that everybody under 40 years old, they're the younger ones are still there, but everyone over that age have died. So it was a time which the previous generation who was there 40 years ago as freed slaves has all died, except for the significant exceptions of Moses, Joshua, and Caleb so far. Well, Moses is still living, though he will not enter the promised land, but Joshua and Caleb will. Now, as you get into it, note that it says there in the first chapter, I believe it's like 11 days journey. They mention it's 11 days journey, but it's a 40-year journey in actual time. If you were to go as the crow flies, as they say, it's only about 11-day journey walking from Egypt, the Red Sea, to the Jordan River. However, the punishment and discipline on the people for their sin was such that they had to wander for 40 days, and that's fascinating, isn't it? 40 days, 40 years, stretching all that time. So Moses is going to give them sermons, and this is called the engine of the Old Testament. It's going to be quoted more than any book than except Psalms in the New Testament, I believe it is. It's all over the teaching in the New Testament. Deuteronomy is, so it's very significant. So we need to master. Okay, so let's look at enough introduction to the book of Deuteronomy. A couple things I want to highlight in these first sermons. You're talking about many of the big historical events we've already read, but a couple of things, sentences I want to just get you thinking through. The verse 17 is, "Judgment is the Lord's, and is anything too hard for me?" These are the things that we think about. The judgment is God's, and is anything too hard for me? And 21, you hear the words "do not fear." And I'm often mentioned this in speaking through the Bible, is that do not fear is one of the most common exhortations that God gives the people. And why is that? When these spies went into the land to spy it out, then they come back with a bad report of, the cities are too big. Remember, we read that in Numbers. The cities are too powerful. The people are too powerful. We're too small. We'll never be able to take them. What God says here, and here's the thing, is when we don't need to look at ourselves, but we need to look at God and who He is. Well, the problem there is that we don't really know who God is in His fullness just by looking at creation. Now, there's a good sentence here in chapter 2:25 where it says, "This day I will begin to put the dread and fear of you, Israel, on the peoples who are under the whole heaven, who shall hear of you and shall tremble in anguish because of you." So this is important. The answer to our problems is not in us, it's in the action of God. What God will put into the hearts of people. See, God is governing every single creature and all of their actions. Nothing is outside of his control. So the answer and the antidote to our fears is to pray and ask the sovereign and supreme Lord to do his work and to change hearts and to bring us all the promises and blessings that he's given to us. Now that is the challenge. Now there's a great illustration in A.W. Pink's book, The Attributes of God, which I think is apt for this occasion as we begin to hear the sermons of Moses preached to Israel on the brink of getting into the promised land. And it goes like this: there's a savage who discovered a watch on the seashore, and he might be fascinated with his watch because he's never seen anything like it, and then he might decide to think about the creator of the watch. He's like, okay, so this had to be created somewhere, but you can only imagine and come up with vain speculation about what the person who made the watch is like. You can get imaginative with it, but unless the actual maker of the watch visits you and tells you and explains who he is and what he's like, you can't really know him. And this is our great problem, is that if we haven't had a visit from the actual maker and heard him and listened to him and been reminded of who he is and understand who he is, we're just vainly speculating on what he's like. And this is key, that we listen to him when he comes to us. And that's what Moses is saying to young people here who have never done what they're about to do. They're about to go into the promised land, and they need to hear the historical works of God and have them interpreted for them. Now that's the key, is that God acts and then interprets the acts infallibly. And that's what the preaching of Moses here in Deuteronomy is to give to us. It's a theological history so that we can know who God is, what he's proven to be and revealed himself to be, so that as we enter into new experiences in the promised land, we will be faithful to him. Okay, so it's a great analogy for our day-to-day lives today. Now let's move to the New Testament. I look forward to hearing more about Deuteronomy with you, but New Testament-wise, Mark 10:32-52, we talked about the man who wants to gain his life will lose it. The man who loses his life for his sake will gain it. And what if you gain the whole world but forfeit your soul? You win nothing. Okay, so here's a guy, the blind beggar named Bartimaeus, and whose name means literally son of filth. He is this terrible little insignificant person. Bartimaeus, blind beggar, is the first one in the gospel. This is some trivia for you. The first one to identify Jesus as the Son of David. And that title has extraordinary importance. It's a chosen one, the anointed one, the Christ. He's calling him the Son of David. And so the key thing is that just like Israel, we don't just need more education or more strength. The blind man was able to understand because God had placed fear in his heart for God. Think about this guy. He's a disabled man on the road to Jericho, and he actually, you might not know this, but it's an underrated fact that he probably had a pretty lucrative lifestyle. So when he asked Jesus to help him, he is going to be giving up his life. So you could get a lot of money begging on the road from to Jericho there, on Jericho Road. And so when he asked Jesus to help him to see, he's asking for more than just his eyesight to be restored. He's giving up his life and all his strength to live and follow and serve the Son of David, that is Jesus. And so you see there in the text that we're going to read here today, Mark 10:45, is that the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. So if you give up anything in this world for the sake of Jesus, know that what you get is the very life of Jesus. There's nothing that you could trade, which would be more worthy of your life than the life of Jesus, which you receive when you give it away, when you give whatever God demands. So he's going to ask these people to give up their security and all their confidence and assurance of their own abilities in order to go out into the promised land and follow him. He's going to ask the same of Bartimaeus. He asks the same of all of us, to trust him. Do not fear, and he will lead us all of our days, because he's good and his promises are true. He cannot fail. With that said, we're going to keep moving through the Bible. This is day 66. If you're watching the end of the video, go ahead and like it. Thanks so much. Appreciate it so much, and we'll hopefully you're learning something and I'm learning stuff too as we go through it. We'll keep reading through the Bible in the year. Thank you.